Hey, welcome to Fresh Air at 5, episode 174. In this episode, we'll hear some different thinking about the 3 new C's of learning, student privacy in the age of ChatGPT, teaching strategies, and using AI with our youngers. Also, how do we prepare? So without further ado, episode 174, Fresh Air at 5.
Hi, this is Krista Lay.
And I'm Craig Aarons-Martin.
We are the co-hosts of the SEL in EDU podcast.
Proud member of the Education Podcast Network.
Each show on the network is independently owned, and the views expressed may not represent those of other podcasts.
For the best education podcast, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter, coming to you every week from Abbotsford, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to get some fresh air by walking about my neighborhood, which is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Simath First Nation and Mathwe First Nation. I consume podcast content while I walk, then reflect on this content in an unedited video, which I post on my X, formerly known as Twitter, channel every day. This podcast is the collection of the audio taken from those daily selfie videos over the course of a week, Monday to Friday. So let's jump into my listening and learning this past week. Hey, PLN, it is Monday, June 17, 2024. This month is trucking. It is moving. I blinked, it was June 1st. Blink again, June 17th. Well, there's a lot that's happened between then and now, but it's moving pretty fast. With that happening, we need to make sure we're taking time for ourselves. Make sure we're caring for ourselves, because we can all just move through it without being aware of it, listening instead of just hearing, hearing instead of just listening. I don't know. Whichever one is the deeper one. Okay, this morning I listened to season 5, episode 23 of the Innovators Mindset podcast, as George Couros brings us an episode entitled The New 3 C's of Learning. And George has taken not the old stuff and throwing it out. No, definitely not. But he has come up with 3 C's that could drive our learning and teaching spaces as we move forward. And I really like what you had to say, George. I didn't read your email. I might subscribe, but with how full it is, like I just said, I didn't see your email. But you did talk about curiosity in this one. You talked about connection. You talked about creativity. I'm really digging all those things. But what about the other 4 C's? You know, you got critical thinking, you got communication and collaboration. You know, how do those fit in? Well, they fit in here, and I see where they fit in. But it's, you have to take some moments to think about that. I really like the idea of taking and making with your learning. What are you doing with that? What are you applying? How are you applying that? And how are you sharing what you have learned and applied with other people? That's where the creation comes in. Connection is so important, that we connect the dots. Making connections. That's what our K-2 teacher talks to the kids about. How are we connecting it to something else that we're learning about, math or art or things like that? And then finally, you had curiosity, driving it all. Why do we do what we do? And making sure that we're aware of that. All right, thanks, George. Take a listen. Bye. Hey, PLN, it's June 19, 2024. Happy birthday to my wife. Happy birthday, sweetheart. She won't hear this here, but I'll tell her that I said it here, and then she'll smile. Yes, so that's happening today. So we're having a low-key festivities this evening. I'm making dinner and gonna get her Starbucks today, things like that. So it's really gonna be a beautiful day. It is a beautiful day. It's like 8 degrees right now. Sun is shining, the sky is clear, and I think we're gonna get a high of in the mid-20s today. So it'll be a nice day. This morning I listened to episode 273 of Teachers on Fire podcast. It's Tim Cavey out in Langley, Surrey area, as he has on guest Fonz Mendoza from the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. And Fonz, it was so great to hear you and Tim talk, two of my edu heroes, as we talk about. And you guys are talking about artificial intelligence and student privacy in the age of ChatGPT. And this age of ChatGPT is on all of us. We all are being affected by it. And how do we move forward? Yes, we have to be open-minded. We have to be critical thinkers, but we also have to be mindful of the impact that it has on our students and on ourselves as we move forward. Human connections are important. Questioning is important. And as we're going to hear, you'll hear when you listen to episode 273 of Teachers on Fire, this interview with Tim Cavey and Fonz Mendoza, that, the student privacy is so important that we understand it. I don't understand it to the level that I probably should at this point. I'm not using a lot of tools with my students at this point. Adobe Express that has image generator in it, but no chatbots, things like that are at this point. And yes, I'm only partway through this episode because my walk was not as long, but I am going to continue listening later. So you should listen too. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll talk to you guys. Have a fabulous day. Tim, Fonz, peace. Bye. PLN June 20, 2024. Out for fresh air at 5 this morning. Plus 12 degrees Celsius. Clear skies. The sun is coming up behind me, and it's just beautiful this morning. Ran into Bruce and Sophie on my walk, so that kind of cut short my podcast listening. But as I was listening before I ran into them and walked along with them for the last bit here, I listened to episode 166 of the EdTech Throwdown with Eric and Nick, as Eric and Nick bring us the great debate about teaching styles. And, you know, we all have our teaching styles and ways that we find that, teaching works. And we have, different things that we do in our classrooms, from lecture to blended learning to flipped classroom. And they go through, and they're going to go through in this episode 166, and then in episode 167, a total of 12 teaching styles. They open it up with lecture style and how lecture style is a style, and it's stand and deliver and sage on the stage kind of thing. But is that good for students? Some students it's good for, others it's not. Micro lecture, Eric talks about that and says he likes that. I like the lecture style myself. I can do that. Maybe is it my best way of learning? Not sure, but thanks for bringing this up, that we got to think about how do we even learn best compared to what is best, or what do we like? What we like that's easy. There's less engagement between the teacher and the student. There's less talking, just getting information so we can move on. All right, take a listen for yourself to the great debate on the EdTech Throwdown, episode 166, and then in a couple weeks on episode 167, wrapping up a whole bunch of different ways of teaching. Thanks, guys. Have a fabulous day. Hey, PLN, it's Friday, June 21, 2024. I woke up at 3 o'clock, got up, sat in front of my computer, did some work for a bit, drank a cup of coffee, then I'm out on the road, and it's just before 5 a.m. for Fresh Air at 5. Beautiful day here. It's going to be a nice, toasty, warm one, blue sky, and the sun is rising in behind me. All right, this morning as I walked, I turned on the Generative Age, episode 16, with Alana Winnick, because she has on guest and fellow teacher down the hall from her, Marina Pisto Lombardo in talking about AI creativity. This is about AI in the field, and it's about AI creativity and debugging in a grade 3 classroom, grade 3 to 5 space, elementary, and looking at how the students were instructed and shared with how to use AI for image generating, for prompt writing, how to write a prompt, using creative language to get out the images out of a image generator that they wanted to see, as opposed to what was being fed based on their lack of specific language or too specific, things like that. And I thought it was a fantastic listen. You should go listen to this. You know, this is inspiring. Should we have our students just doing whatever with AI? Nope, we shouldn't. We should teach them about citizenship, teach them about privacy, talk about, you know, where and when and why we should be using AI and why we should be using human intelligence. I like the HI, the AI. I might make a poster to reflect my thoughts on these two things. Yes. All right, Alana and Marina, thank you so much for sharing with us. I would encourage people that are going to ISTE to go see them. At ISTE, they've got some of the students that will be sharing some of their work. I think at ISTE, they did during the week of AI, which is pretty rad. And it's awesome to get kids up in front of their peers to share their thoughts about detective work and debugging and DJing. All right, peace out. Have a fabulous day. Bye. The last thing for June 21, 2024, and this is the last segment for episode 174 of Fresh Air at 5 that'll be coming out tonight. So if you listen to this on Twitter, hey, go over and find my podcast and subscribe. Appreciate that very much. All right. As I was wrapping up here, I listened to Seeing to Lead, episode 77 of season 3 with Dr. Chris Jones. And Chris brings us an episode called Prepare. Chris, I had a pretty good idea what you're going to talk about, because as it's exam season and I watch students come prepared or not for their exams, you know, it gets you thinking about how do you do the work before so that when you get there, you're ready to go. You know, and students shouldn't be surprised at the results on their exams, because they should pay attention, I think, to how they prepared. If their exams are so brutal because we have not prepared them, then that's on us as teachers. But you know what? Life is all about being prepared or not. You know, I'm going fishing at the beginning of July. And as I'm going fishing, I'm, mulling over in my head already, what do I need to take with me for a 3-day fishing trip, which includes camping and food and, sleeping and shelter and all those kinds of things, so that I can effectively, on the moment that I leave, be all ready to go. That's exactly like a whole lot of life. We got to be thinking about what's ahead. Chris talked about the ill preparation and how we cannot get to something, about like lifting a weight, about going to go do something, and something that might be holding us back. And how can we look at what we're trying to accomplish and be prepared and work on the skills necessary to get to the end of that? Looking at my students' growth and development over the course of the year, working with them on media design and graphic design, using Adobe Express, the first time they get in there, it's like, whoa, there's so much things here. But by the time we get to the end of our course and we're talking about design principles and things like that, saying a few words, students can go and create really quickly. So that's just like a lot of things. All right, Chris, thanks so much. And everybody have a fabulous weekend, and we'll see you on the other side. Bye.
I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's like a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find some other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific episode podcast titles and episode numbers in the show notes, which are only a click or swipe away for your learning convenience. I've also started to put together a Spotify playlist of each of the episodes so that you can also take a listen to those specifically, and the link to that playlist is in the show notes. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoyed this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Brian Carr, BRYONCAR, or at Fresh Air at 5. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can be found on the Educational Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get some fresh air before the day is out and take care of yourself because you are worth it.